because it was absolutely full of, well, I suppose, cockroaches and beetles. And coming from Bermondsey, we children, of course, never really seen any insects other than bedbugs. You just felt absolutely enclosed in these places. We didn't even have roofs on the huts in some places. So you had all the noise coming through, and of course the rain. When it poured, if you were unlucky and had a bad season, the rain just to come through, and you had no change of clothing. You just had to put your wet things on, you see. I mean, all your linen got wet, everything got wet.
First of all, we used to wallpaper them. And we never had wallpaper then. We had flour and water, and you'd get a bowl of flour and water, and then, if you could imagine, you've got to go between all these crevices. And by Christ, it was an hard job. And then you'd go round and round and round. By the time you got that in, this lot had fell off. So you've got to keep going round all the time. It was a joke, really, but we'd eventually done it, and it looked nice at the end.
There'd be somebody doing a faggot stew, wouldn't they? There'd be somebody else doing a sausage stew.
You get all nice and old rabbit.
You get all loads of old rabbit. It used to be lovely.
Our house was rather high, so we could look down on all the farm fires that were going on, and you could hear all the songs being sang echoed over the valley.
Carrots, down for beef and carrots. Don't let us stuff for your doggy cat. It keeps you fit and it makes you well. Don't live like vegetarians on stuffed ain't meat and parrots. From morn till night, at your right with oil, beef and carrots.
I love that. I love the way you go.
You'd have a nice sluice down, and the coldness of the autumn air in the morning and the coldness of the water really brought your senses sharp and set you up for the rest of the day. We'd leave the common, go up to the hop fields, and we'd see the home dwellers, the people that lived there all the time, because they picked hops too. They needed to earn money the same as we did. Everybody used to start at the same time, and it always started with a signal with the yard foreman. He'd come up and he'd shout, "All to work, all to work," and he'd give a couple of blasts on this little bugle. And of course everybody finds over their laps and they go away picking like mad things.
And I think I can say I was the only one that ever wore gloves. I used to loathe all that business of the vines on my hands. They used to tear your hands to pieces.
Well, on our farm, we had a Salvation Army. We had a hut. And if you was cut, you know, anything, bee sting, you'd go up to the Salvation Army and they'd dress you up. And if it was worse, then they'd phone for an ambulance to take you to the nearest hospital. But everything was well, you know, it was well organised sort of thing, but let's face it, us kids used to fake accidents so that we could get off a picking.
I was practically born in a hop field on Whitbread's farm, and I was just taken there from 10 days old and disliked it from that day onwards. And from 7 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night was no child's idea of playing.
If the pole puller was nice, I'd put all curlers in my hair.
All the girls would sort of, you know, make eye for him, but he probably wasn't interested in.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, it was
best,
marvellous.
put me nice things on.
Blouse, a nice blouse and pair of trousers or nice
But
skirt.
if I didn't like the pole puller, I'd keep my curlers in all day.
Your hands turned yellow and then they went black from the sulphur stuff that they sprayed the hops with.
Everything you touched tasted of hops afterwards.
Okay, thank you, darling.
We used to take sandwiches. We used to sit on the vines when the weather was nice, and it was really lovely.
The hop pickers, they'd come out with their billy cans and make a little fire and have, you know, the old brew up.
Well, after we've had our food on the hop field, my mum might say, well, you can go to town and get some milk, bread and whatever we need.
We did bring a hell of a lot of trade to the shops, And I think the tradesmen, by and large, used to welcome the hop pickers coming. But I don't know about the general population.
One little boy there, I remember him seeing a cow being milked on the farm, and he said they didn't have their milk like that. They had it in bottles and cans in London.
They come in, here we are, my old cop, we're back again. Pleased to see us, I bet. They get hold of these old worn-headed things and shake it. See, you don't trust us again as usual, you old lot.
We as kids, we were always getting in the orchards, nicking the apples and God knows what. So, no doubt they had good cause for criticising us.
It was rather an attitude of they were having their one and only holiday. They'd been denied any access to something free. Here in the country, apples hung on trees next to where they was picking. Well, too much of a temptation, really, wasn't it?
We dive in this river, swim across, up the other bank and into his orchard. Then we take the apples off the tree, whip them back over, where they'd be caught like this, stuffed in underneath, because you never knew if Mr. Carey was on the common. You didn't want to get caught, so you got a pram full of apples.
It was accepted as part of the penalty that the country as a whole, or countryside, would pay for having their hops picked.
We were standoffish towards the Londoners. It was them and us in those days. In no time, the hedges would be ripped to pieces, and their children, like children, used to be away off scrumping. But as people, we really didn't get to know them until the war came, and then we found out that they were human and they were nice people. But I think what we objected to was the destruction that they caused.
We went hop picking one year, and the first day there were two rather refined elderly ladies picking the next bin, and we got into conversation with them. They were picking very, very slowly, one hop at a time. They would never have earned any money. And they were both in tears, and they told my mother that they'd been told in London that if you go down hopping down in Kent, you get free lodgings and free bed for picking hops, you see. So they came quite thinking that they would have a nice, well, boarding house or guest house, I suppose, and all they'd got was a bundle of straw and just the hopper hut. So my mother had them back with us that night. We squeezed them in, and they went back to London the next day, very disappointed.
My mum wasn't very pleased about me not wanting to pick hops. My father used to come home and say to her, "How's she been today?" She'd say, "She's seen every bird that goes over the hop garden."
Get your hops ready!
The farm foreman and the tally lady would come onto the field. He'd tell everybody, get your hops ready. And all the mums then would dive down into the bins with their brawny arms and lift up all the hops to make them as light as they could. Like you do when you're making pastry.
Cleaner today. Not the governor's like.
You can't get no cleaner than that, Tom. That's a good boy. Where you go?
If you had a good measurer, he didn't sort of bang them down in the basket, so you got more.
He could halve your take. This, of course, led rise to the backhander business. The measurer, he would be up the pub when they were there. He didn't buy any beer.
The tally lady would keep a record in her register of how many bushels he'd measured out of your bin.
You want a sub? Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Three.
That's two. Thank you very much.
They'd take 12 or 20 bushels of hops in one of these great big sacks. We used to call them pokes. And they'd take them up to the host house, you see, ready for drying.
They came up for a drink, especially Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays when they subbed money from the farmer or the foreman and had a beer night.
Friday night and Saturday night you couldn't get in the village at all, you know, to get into the pub. You had to get up there early. Even if you wanted a seat, you'd never get in the village to get a seat in the pub because everyone was standing, you know, so close.
Yeah. The good tables was taken out, and the chairs was taken out, plus the mat, and he was given all barrels to sit on, you know, and old rickety tables.
What they used to do was charge, say, a shilling on each glass. as kids, we used to go around taking all the